All stories on this channel are original works of fiction. Any resemblance to actual persons or events is purely coincidental. My name is Shen Yu, but inside the archive, they call me the Raven Archivist. I collect the cases that official reports could never fully explain. Missing people, forgotten villages, closed roads, old photographs, witness statements, names that appear where they should not exist. Most people call them ghost stories. I call them files. And tonight, I am opening one of them for you. This file begins in Qinghai County on an ordinary village road where an old woman named Jiang Yulan lost her life beneath the wheels of a luxury car. The report called it an accident. The compensation was 600,000 yuan. The family signed a settlement. The ashes were taken away. On paper, the matter should have ended there. But one granddaughter refused to believe that her grandmother's life could be bought buried and forgotten. Because before Jiang Yulan died, she had made one final phone call. Because after her death, one man laughed outside the crematorium and called 600,000 yuan a bargain. Because somewhere inside a rich family's villa, two people were hiding a secret so filthy that an old woman had to die for seeing it. This is not only a case about murder, it is a case about greed, about betrayal, about a daughter treated like a price tag, about a grandmother who saved every coin for the child she loved, and about a granddaughter who walked into the house of the killers wearing the mask of a servant, carrying grief in her heart and revenge in her hands. Welcome to the Raven Files.
My grandmother died in a car accident. My father took 600,000 yuan from the man who caused it, and overnight, he became the kind of man everyone in the village envied. But right outside the crematorium, I heard that man laughing on the phone with my own ears. "It's done," he said. 600,000 for a life. Honestly, that was a bargain. He paused for a moment, then gave a low laugh. "Don't worry. Our secret will never be known by a third person." I stood behind the cold wall of the crematorium, and my whole body went numb. Half an hour before the accident, my grandmother had called me. I did not answer. At that time, I was in Yuntai City sitting in the most important graduate school interview of my life. My phone was on silent. By the time I walked out of the interview room, I saw her missed call. I called back immediately. No one answered. I did not think too much of it. My grandmother Jiang Yulan had spent her whole life working with her hands. Once she stepped inside the house, all she could see were chores that never ended. Rice to cook, chickens to feed, clothes to wash, floors to sweep, firewood to stack, vegetables to pick. To her, a cell phone was almost like a strange decoration. Sometimes she could go an entire day without remembering to look at it. So I thought this time was the same. I thought that the next morning when she went out to hang laundry or came home from work, she would see her phone and call me back. But the next morning, the call I waited for did not come from her. It came from Guo Chen. Guo Chen was my childhood friend from the village. His voice on the phone sounded hoarse and distant, as if it were coming from a nightmare. "Xiaoran," he said, "your grandmother is gone. She was hit by a car. Why aren't you back yet?" I held the phone and stood frozen in the middle of campus. It took me a long time to understand every word he had just said. My grandmother was dead, and I did not hear it from my parents. I heard it from a friend in the village. I was what people called a left-behind child. When I was very young, my parents left the village to work in the city. I was thrown to my grandmother and raised by her. In my childhood memories, my mother was a vague face that appeared only during the new year. My father was an impatient voice over the phone, but my grandmother was the one who cooked for me. She combed my hair, she walked me to school, she held me when I had a fever. She sat under the yellow light at night, patching my old clothes stitch by stitch. Before my parents returned to the village, I truly thought my grandmother was my mother. And now she was gone. To me, it felt as if the sky had collapsed. I rushed to catch the earliest bus back to Qinghai County. On the way, a terrible question kept growing in my heart. Something this serious had happened. Why had my father not told me? I called him more than 10 times. He did not answer once. By the time I reached our house in Shuangxi village, white funeral banners were already hanging in the yard. Wreaths stood by the gate. The sound of fake crying mixed with low conversations struck my ears, making my grandmother's death suddenly real in the cruelest way. I saw her portrait on the funeral altar. In the photo, she was still smiling. That smile took the strength from my knees. I collapsed onto the ground. A neighbor auntie hurried over to help me up. She wiped at her eyes as if she were truly sad and sighed. "Good child, don't be too heartbroken. Your grandmother's death can still be considered a happy funeral." I looked up at her in disbelief. A happy funeral? My voice trembled. My grandmother was only 67. She was healthy. She walked faster than people half her age. She was hit and killed by a car. How can you call that a happy funeral? The woman looked embarrassed and stopped talking. Another neighbor standing beside her curled her lips. There was even envy on her face. Why wouldn't it be? She died and earned her son a huge amount of money. 600,000 yuan. Your grandmother was lucky in her own way. At that moment, I understood. I understood why my father had not told me. He was afraid I would come back, afraid I would stand in the way of his fortune. For years, my father, Liu Jianmin, had tried every possible way to stop me from taking the graduate school entrance exam. He wanted me to graduate as quickly as possible, find a job as quickly as possible, and get married as quickly as possible, preferably to a family willing to pay a large bride price. He had pointed at my face more than once and scolded me. "If you don't get married and bring in a bride price, what will your brother use to marry a wife? How will he pay another family's bride price? You're his older sister. Can't you think about him for once? Why are you so selfish?" My younger brother Liu Hao was the treasure of the family, and I, in my parents' eyes, was just an item that could be exchanged for money. I ignored them. I kept studying. I kept taking exams. I kept trying to run away from that family. So my father turned his anger on my grandmother. "It's all because you spoiled her," he said. "A daughter grows up and doesn't even care about her parents. What a waste." He had completely forgotten that he was the one who had thrown me to my grandmother after I was born. He had never raised me for even a single day. My grandmother always told me not to bother arguing with my father. "He's a bastard," she said. "All he sees is that precious son of his. Don't pay attention to him. You just study hard. One day you'll make something of yourself and you'll make them mad just by living well." She said I did not need to worry about tuition. "Grandma has money. One way or another, I'll help you finish school." My grandmother worked as a cleaner at a vocational school in town. She earned 1,500 yuan a month. She spent at most 500 on herself and saved the rest for me. I refused to take her money. Ever since I started college, I had studied and worked at the same time. In my free time, I wrote articles for online accounts. I did not earn much, but it was enough for my own expenses. Still, Grandma insisted on saving for me. "If you don't need it now, I'll keep it for later," she said. "It will be your dowry." Jiang Yulan's granddaughter cannot marry without a dowry and let people laugh at her. Those words still echoed in my ears. But the person who said them was gone. From now on, no one in this world would worry about whether Liu Xiaoran had enough money to spend. No one would worry about whether I would be looked down on. No one would secretly save a dowry for me. I lowered my head and my tears finally broke free. The truth was, I had always known my father had his eyes on Grandma's savings, but she refused to give them to him. Because of that money, he had once fought with her violently. He said she did not know who was truly family. He said she had money but refused to spend it on her grandson, choosing instead to save it for a granddaughter. He even said viciously, "When you die, don't blame your grandson if he doesn't burn paper money for you." Now Grandma was really dead, hit by a car. The person who caused the accident had paid a large sum of money. My father must have been afraid I would ask for a share, so he hid the news from me. I wiped away my tears, carrying a rage that almost burned through my chest, and rushed straight to Qinghai funeral home. Guo Chen drove me there. On the way, he told me everything he had managed to find out about the accident. The man who caused it was named Qin Yuheng. He was the son of Qin Zhen, the chairman of Qinsheng Pharmaceuticals, a well-known company in Yuntai City. After the accident happened the previous evening, Qin Yuheng called the police himself. His statement was simple. He said he was driving normally on the country road. It was getting dark and he did not see my grandmother walking by the roadside. By the time he noticed her, he panicked. Somehow, instead of stepping on the brake, he stepped on the gas. And that was how the tragedy happened. He did not flee the scene. He had not been drinking. He had not taken drugs. The accident happened on a village road with no surveillance cameras. The traffic police temporarily accepted his explanation and classified it as an accidental traffic incident. That same night, the Qin family's lawyer came to the village. After bargaining for a while, my father agreed to a settlement of 600,000 yuan. The money was transferred into his account that very night. My father, as the representative of the family, signed a settlement agreement and a letter of forgiveness. I sat in the car cold from head to toe. So that means he doesn't have to take responsibility. Guo Chen stayed silent. His silence was the answer. My grandmother, a living, breathing person, a woman who had suffered all her life and still smiled through it, had been reduced to one accidental traffic case and 600,000 yuan. It felt as if there were a volcano sealed inside my body. I did not know where to let it erupt. Before we entered the funeral home, Guo Chen held my arm. "Xiaoran," he said, "I know how angry you are. But your grandmother cared about dignity. Don't fight with your father here. At least let her leave with peace." I understood what he meant. My grandmother valued face and reputation. No matter how awful my father was, I could not cause a scene at her funeral and let her become gossip for the entire village. I told myself to stay calm. But when I saw my father, I could not stay calm at all. The moment I entered the funeral hall, I saw him bending slightly and nodding toward a young man in a well-tailored suit. There was a flattering smile on my father's face, one I had never seen him give my grandmother. The young man looked cold and indifferent. He only curled his lips slightly before turning to leave. I asked my father, "Who is he?" The instant my father saw me, his expression changed. "Why are you back? Who told you?" He did not ask if I was tired. He did not ask if I was heartbroken. The first thing he cared about was who had told me. When I did not answer, he lowered his voice and warned me. "It's useless even if you're back. Let me tell you clearly. The money young Master Qin paid is for your brother's marriage. Don't even dream of touching a single cent." My grandmother was dead. For 600,000 yuan, my father could smile at the man who had killed her. For fear that I would ask for a share, he had tried to keep me from even knowing she had died. Knowing something in your heart is one thing. Hearing it from your own father's mouth is another. I felt sick. I did not want to look at his face for another second, so I turned around and chased after the man in the suit. That had to be Qin Yuheng. The volcano inside me needed a way out. If it did not find one, I was afraid I would explode right there. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to grab him by the collar, smash my fists into his face, and ask him why he had taken my grandmother from me. But when I caught up behind him, I heard him talking on the phone. His voice was light. There was even a smile in it. "It's done," he said. 600,000 bought peace. Honestly, that was a bargain. I froze. I did not know what the person on the other end said, but Qin Yuheng laughed again. "Relax. She died on the spot." And just now I saw with my own eyes that the ashes had already been taken for cremation. That secret will never be known by anyone. My ears rang. Every word he said stabbed into my chest like a knife. Secret. It was not an accident. My grandmother's death was definitely not simple. I almost rushed forward to tear him apart. But at that exact moment, a thought flashed through my mind. No, I could not expose myself. I could not make him wary of me. If I wanted revenge for Grandma, I had to find the truth. She was watching me from heaven. I could not be stupid. The May sun had already begun to burn, but my body was as cold as if I had been soaked in ice water. It was not until Guo Chen found me and placed his warm hand on my shoulder that I finally felt like I was still alive in the human world. I went back into the funeral home to find my father. I told him Grandma's death wasn't an accident. Qin Yuheng may have hit her on purpose. We can't take his money. If we take his money, Grandma will have died for nothing. As expected, my father immediately called me crazy. What do you mean, we? This money has nothing to do with you. Why are you sticking your nose into this? I stared at him in disbelief. Qin Yuheng may have deliberately killed your own mother, and all you care about is whether your daughter will take your money. My father flew into a rage. Stop talking nonsense. I'm warning you, if your troublemaking costs me that money, you'll answer to me. Looking at his arrogant, vicious face, I felt a coldness seep into my bones. I should never have expected anything from this man. He was not worthy of being a son. He was not worthy of being a father either. I turned and left. Behind me, he shouted curses. You cursed girl. You never do anything useful. All you do is bring bad luck to me. I went to the traffic police department to find an old classmate who worked there. My classmate was very direct. For a traffic case like this, it was extremely difficult to prove whether it was an accident or intentional murder. I asked, if my family refuses to settle, can Qin Yuheng be convicted? My classmate sighed. Unless the circumstances are especially serious, traffic accidents usually lead to less than 3 years in prison, sometimes even probation. Qin Yuheng called the police himself, showed a good attitude, and actively compensated the family. Even if your family refuses to settle, the result may not change much. In other words, if I relied only on the current accident file, it would be almost impossible for me to get justice for Grandma through legal channels. So I had to find another way. I did not want to go back to my parents' house, so I went to my best friend Chen Wan's place. She worked at the bank in town. The moment Chen Wan saw me, her eyes turned red. She handed me a savings book. Your grandmother gave this to me to hold for her 1 hour before the accident. I opened it. 30,000 yuan. A 1-year fixed deposit. Chen Wan told me that day had been payday for Grandma. In a small town like ours, many places still paid wages in cash. Grandma did not use WeChat, so every time she received her salary, she came to the bank to deposit it. That day, it had just reached 30,000, Chen Wan said. She said to deposit it for 1 year first. She also told me to keep it for her and not let your father know. I understood why Grandma did not dare bring the money or the savings book home. She was afraid my father would find it. I held the savings book and cried until I could barely breathe. That night it was almost midnight before I finally fell asleep. Near dawn I dreamed of Grandma. She stood under the old locust tree in our yard, looking anxious the same way she looked when I lost my school fees as a child. I still haven't given you the money, she said. I left before I could give it to you. What will my granddaughter do if she gets married one day without a dowry? In the dream, she was so worried that tears streamed down her face. I woke up crying. For reasons I could not explain, it felt as if an invisible force was guiding me. I went to the village road where Grandma had been hit. Everything felt like fate. It was beside that road that I learned something shocking. The accident had happened on the road from the rural credit cooperative back to Shuangxi village. There was still a faint chalk outline on the road. I stood before that faded mark and imagined the hour before Grandma died. What had she been doing? What had she been thinking? She finished work at 5 o'clock. She had to hurry before the credit cooperative closed at 6 to deposit the money. On the way there, she must have walked quickly. After 6, with the money safely deposited, her heart must have been lighter. On the way home, she would not have been in such a hurry anymore. Maybe she was thinking of buying a block of tofu from the market on the way back then, mixing it with scallions and sesame oil for dinner. Or maybe she was thinking that she had finally saved half of the dowry she wanted to give her granddaughter. Once she saved the other half, she could finally rest. When I got married, she would sit at home like an old matriarch wearing the floral clothes I bought for her. My grandmother, Jiang Yulan, had been famous for her beauty when she was young. She had an oval face, a straight nose, and a small mouth. When she smiled, the corners of her lips lifted, and her eyes curved like crescent moons. She had suffered so much in her life, but she never bowed to fate. Her favorite saying was, "A day spent laughing is still a day. A day spent crying is also a day. So why not laugh? If you laugh through one day, you've already won that day." That was why even at 67, though wrinkles covered her face, all of her wrinkles seemed to curve upward. They were laugh lines. They made people feel warm just by looking at her. A person like that had worked hard her entire life. Before she could enjoy even a little sweetness from the granddaughter she had raised, a cold metal shell ended her life. I stood before the chalk mark and cried for a long time. I did not know how much time passed before a child's voice sounded behind me. "Why are you crying?" I turned around. It was a girl about 12 years old. Her eyes were dull and her clothes were dirty. One look told me she was mentally disabled. Maybe because she was a child. Maybe because she was a foolish child who could not possibly have an agenda. I did not guard myself against her. I told her my grandmother had been hit and killed by a car here. Before I could even finish speaking, the girl sighed. "So that old lady was your grandma? She flew so high that day. She was amazing." My heart stopped for a beat. I grabbed her shoulders. "You saw my grandmother get hit?" She nodded. "I saw it." There were two people in the car, a man and a woman. After the old lady flew away, the woman was laughing. I thought it was fun, so I clapped and laughed too. She tilted her head and looked at me with confusion. "Why aren't you laughing? Wasn't it fun?" The child in front of me was truly foolish. She did not understand that death should be answered with tears. But was the woman in the car also foolish? Why was she laughing? I forced down my trembling and asked, "Did you see who was driving? Do you remember what the woman looked like?" She shook her head. "I don't know who was driving, but there was definitely a woman." I called the police immediately. They arrived quickly, but the moment they saw the witness, they frowned. One officer told me that the girl had intellectual disabilities. She was well known in the area. Her words could not be used as direct evidence. I called my classmate at the traffic police department. After checking the file again, he confirmed, "There is no mention in the record that there was anyone else in the car. The road had no surveillance camera. There was no proof that a woman had been inside the car at the time of the accident." But I believed that child had not lied to me. I also believed that from the unseen world, Grandma was guiding me. Jiang Yulan had always known clearly whom she loved and whom she hated. She despised evil like an enemy. If she had died unjustly, she must be waiting for me to find the murderer. That day, heavy rain began to fall. I walked back to Chen Wan's place through the rain. All the way back, I kept telling myself, "Be rational, stay calm." The woman in Qin Yuheng's car that day was very likely the same person he had called outside the crematorium. Finding the woman he was hiding might be the key to uncovering their secret. I told Guo Chen and Chen Wan about my plan. I needed Guo Chen's help. "This will take a lot of your time and energy," I told him. "I know I'm asking too much. But other than you, I don't have anyone I can turn to. Just treat it as if I'm hiring you. 300 yuan a day. Put it on my tab. I'll pay you back someday." Guo Chen looked at me for a long time. I was afraid he would refuse. but in the end he nodded. 200, he said. Friendship discount. Clearly he was still charging me money, but somehow that friendship discount gave my burning heart a little relief. My father was awful. The bad people were cruel. But at least I still had Guo Chen. After Grandma's funeral was finished, I began following Qin Yuheng. I suspected the woman in the car that day was probably his lover. On the surface, Qin Yuheng did not have a girlfriend. Because of that, he had even more reason to hide a woman who could not be brought into the light. Our little surveillance team consisted of me, Guo Chen, and Huazi, one of Guo Chen's closest friends. Huazi worked freelance jobs. Whenever Guo Chen had work and could not drive me, Huazi took over. But for 2 full weeks, even though we took turns following him, we did not discover any suspicious woman. Qin Yuheng left home before 8 every morning. If he did not have business dinners, he returned home around 7:10 in the evening. We never saw any woman in his car. Investigating from the outside was too ineffective, so I had to infiltrate the enemy from within. I pretended to be a nanny working for another household and used grocery shopping as an opportunity to get close to the Qin family's nanny. The secrets of rich families are difficult to hide completely from servants, and the Qin family's nanny loved to talk. She told me that Qin Zhen and his son were relatively normal, but Qin Zhen's new wife was a complete lunatic. According to her, Mrs. Qin was moody, controlling, picky, and extremely hard to serve. Other than cooking and cleaning, she barely lets me leave the nanny room, the woman complained. That room is as small as a birdcage. Staying in there is suffocating. She doesn't treat nannies like people at all. The old nanny had a deep resentment toward the lady of the house. From her angry complaints, I roughly understood the basic situation of the Qin family. The head of the family was Qin Zhen, 55 years old, chairman of Qin Sheng Pharmaceuticals. His first wife had died 5 years earlier. The current Mrs. Qin was named Su Manqing. She was 35. She married Qin Zhen 2 years ago and became his second wife. Qin Yuheng was 28, heir to Qin Sheng Pharmaceuticals and unmarried. Su Manqing and Qin Yuheng had an extremely bad relationship. Calling them fire and water was not an exaggeration. I heard that at home they barely spoke to each other. Su Manqing disliked Qin Yuheng, and Qin Zhen favored his young wife, treating his son colder and colder. In the old nanny's eyes, Qin Yuheng was practically a poor child, bullied by his stepmother. But was that really the truth? Only by entering the Qin house myself could I learn more. I found the agency where the old nanny was registered and secretly gave the agent 3,000 yuan. I asked her to introduce the nanny to a better job. With a chance to escape the birdcage, the old nanny resigned immediately. Then I replaced her and became the Qin family's new nanny. Thank goodness for masks. At the funeral home, I had worn a mask the entire time, so Qin Yuheng had not seen my face clearly. Now it was my turn. Passing the interview was not too difficult. On the first day I walked through the gate of the Qin family villa, Su Manqing pointed at a smartwatch on the table and told me to put it on. I did not understand why, but I obeyed. As I strapped the watch around my wrist, Su Manqing spoke. Her tone was cold and arrogant. There isn't much work in this house. Your schedule is posted on the door. Just follow the time and place written there. Other than that, you'd better stay in your room. I don't like being disturbed. I looked at the A4 sheet taped to the door. It listed every work period in detail. The bold black line at the bottom was especially glaring. Except when leaving the house to buy groceries, whenever you leave the nanny room to work inside this house, you are not allowed to carry your phone. I frowned slightly. Soon after, I was taken to the nanny room. The room was only about 15 square meters. It was small, but it had a bed, a private bathroom, and even a tiny kitchen. Looking at the setup, it was obvious what the owner wanted. Unless necessary, the nanny should not leave the room at all. The strangest thing was that there was also a surveillance camera inside the room. In other words, the owner could monitor the nanny at any time. Su Man King told me to change clothes and come out. I agreed obediently and closed the door. The moment the door shut, the sounds outside disappeared completely. The room was as silent as death. I checked the window. It had been sealed shut and could not be opened from the inside. That room did not feel like a place to live. It felt like a box designed to hold a person captive. No wonder the old nanny had been so easily lured away by a higher salary. She once said, "Working for the Chin family is no different from going to prison." On the first day, I followed Su Man King's rules. At 7 in the morning, I finished preparing breakfast, then left the house to buy groceries. At 11, I came back to cook lunch. At 12, after lunch was ready, I returned to the nanny room, cooked something for myself, ate and rested. I knew whoever was behind the camera was watching me, so I tried my best to appear relaxed. But strangely, the camera and all those bizarre rules made me feel more certain. This house definitely had secrets. Su Man King spent so much effort monitoring one nanny. Was it really just because she did not like being disturbed? Or was there something inside this house she could not allow outsiders to discover? Was that secret connected to my grandmother's death? A week passed. According to updates from Guo Chen and Huazi Qin Yuhang, went straight home after work and had no contact with any woman outside of female colleagues. So even though I did not want to believe it, one possibility appeared. Maybe the woman in the car that day was not outside at all. People say the secrets of a household can often be found in the trash. Clearly, Su Man King knew that too. There was another reason I had been able to enter the Chin house so smoothly. On the final interview day, there had been 3 candidates. When the interview ended, Su Man King asked me to throw a bag of trash into the large bin in the yard. Inside the trash bag was a shiny gold necklace. I saw it, but I pretended not to see anything and threw the entire bag directly into the bin. Later, the agency told me that the 2 other candidates were more experienced than I was, but both had been rejected. One of them had taken out the necklace and returned it to Su Man King. The other had taken it out and handed it to Qin Zhen when he came home. They were both clever people. They wanted to prove they were honest by returning lost property. But Su Man King did not need a good person. She needed a human machine who only followed orders and did nothing extra. After more than a month in the Qin house within the limited time and space, I could observe Qin Yuheng and Su Man King almost never exchanged a glance. That was, of course, not normal. Qin Zhen and Qin Yuheng left the house together at 8 every morning. But Qin Zhen came home at 8:30 every night. In other words, at least from a little after 7 in the evening to 8:30 at night, Qin Yuheng and Su Man King had every opportunity to be alone together. But I saw nothing. Because from 7 at night to 11, as the nanny, I was required to sit in prison inside my room. To find more clues, I could only sneak through the family's trash at night. Overall, based on what I found in the trash, the person with the most problems was Su Man King. Qin Yuheng's trash was minimal, mostly old company documents, packaging from collectible models, and occasionally cigarette butts. In Qin Zhen's trash, I only found that he occasionally used potency medication. He was in his 50s and his wife was in her 30s. That did not seem too strange. But there was something unusual between him and Su Man King. Almost every night, Qin Zhen personally brewed Chinese medicine for Su Man King. The smell was very strong. From a few words they exchanged, I only knew it was a tonic. One day, I secretly photographed the medicine residue. When I went grocery shopping, I stopped by a Chinese medicine shop and asked about it. The shopkeeper told me it was a formula to nourish the liver and kidneys, regulate the body, and help with pregnancy. Comparing that with the weekly meal plans Qin Zhen and Su Man King gave me, I realized they were probably trying to have a child. I asked the old nanny. She confirmed that during the more than 1 year she had worked at the Qin house, Qin Zhen had brewed medicine for Su Man King almost every day. That was strange. Su Man King was only 35. Qin Zhen was clearly trying hard. Why had she still not gotten pregnant? Very soon I got my answer. In Suman King's trash, besides feminine hygiene products and discarded cosmetics, a small pile of ashes appeared almost every week. The ashes looked like burned, soft plastic and paper. Because almost everything had turned to ash, I could not tell what it had originally been, so I could only wait patiently, wait for her to expose herself. At the same time, I told Guo Chen and Huazi to keep following Qin Yuheng. Maybe something new would happen on his side. Heaven did not disappoint those who waited. In the third month after I entered the Qin house, a small, unburned scrap appeared among Suman King's ashes. It was about the size of a pinky fingernail, slightly stiff like part of a medicine box. Only 1.5 characters were left on it. I searched for a long time but found nothing. The next day I went to a pharmacy near the Qin villa and showed the photo to the clerk. "Do you have any medicine packaging that looks like this?" The young clerk studied it for a while, then shook his head. I was disappointed and turned to leave. At that moment, an older employee raised her head from the corner. "Miss, are you trying to buy birth control pills?" I froze. She took out a pink box and handed it to me. "Is it this one?" I looked at the words on the package, and everything became clearer. Qinjin was giving Suman King Chinese medicine to help her conceive. She did not refuse it. But at the same time, she was secretly taking birth control pills. That meant she did not want to get pregnant. She did not want to have Qinjin's child. Why? Just then, Huazi called me. He said that the day before, while following Qin Yuheng, he saw him enter this pharmacy. But Qin Yuheng came out very quickly and Huazi did not know what he bought. My heart pounded. Instinct told me I was very close to the truth. I forced myself to hide my emotions and showed Qin Yuheng's photo to the clerk. "Did this man come here yesterday to buy this medicine?" The young clerk was about to nod, but the older employee stepped in front of him. "Why are you asking?" I sighed. "This man is my husband. He's cheating on me. He may be buying birth control pills for his mistress. Ma'am, if he comes again, please don't tell him I asked. I need evidence so I can divorce him and make him leave with nothing." The two employees looked at me with sympathy and nodded, promising not to say anything. The moment I walked out of the pharmacy, tears streamed down my face. The woman in Qin Yuheng's car had to be Suman King. He bought birth control pills for Suman King. That meant there was something improper between them. At the crematorium, the person Qin Yuheng called had to be Suman King too. Now everything made sense. That afternoon, the pair who could not be brought into the light had gone to a remote place to meet. Somehow my grandmother discovered their secret. Then to hide that secret, they chose to run her over. After all, my grandmother was only an old countrywoman. A little money could solve everything. But what exactly had Grandma seen? Even if she accidentally saw the two of them being intimate, she did not know them. Would they really have killed her just for that? At that time, I never imagined that the truth would be even more shameless than I thought. In our hometown, there is a custom called the first seventh day. 7 days after someone dies, the family performs a ritual to send off the spirit. That day, the incense on Grandma's altar would not burn no matter what we did. According to the elders in the village, this meant the dead still had unfinished business and refused to leave. My father had no choice. While cursing under his breath, he invited a famous spirit medium from the area. Her surname was Wu. Madame Wu used a single chopstick for the ritual. She pressed the chopstick against the table and asked Jiang Yulan, "You refuse to leave. Is it because you miss your son?" The chopstick fell. Madame Wu set it upright again and asked, "Is it because you miss your grandson?" The chopstick fell again. She tried once more. "Then is it because you miss your granddaughter?" The chopstick trembled a little but still fell. Madame Wu looked carefully at all of us. Then her voice suddenly lowered. "Jiang Yulan, you refuse to leave because you died unjustly, don't you?" My heart almost jumped into my throat. The chopstick immediately stood upright on the table. Madame Wu's expression changed. She turned to my father and said, Your mother died with injustice. Aren't your hands burning from holding the money paid for her life? If you spend that money, I'm afraid your family line will be cut off. My father did not believe in ghosts or fate. He grabbed a broom and tried to chase her out. Madame Wu clearly did not want to stay in our house any longer. She muttered, "Those who refuse to believe in heaven's warning will meet disaster," and left. That very night, while my younger brother was playing games on his phone in the bathroom, he saw Grandma. She pushed him into the manure pit. Because he sprained his ankle, he lay beside the pit all night. My parents slept deeply that night. Later, they said they had both suffered sleep paralysis. Liu Hao screamed and cried like a ghost, but they heard nothing. The next morning, when my father went to the bathroom and saw Liu Hao covered in filth, he was so frightened he almost lost his soul. Of course, all of this was my doing. I was Grandma's ghost. I wore the clothes she had worn when she was alive. I put on a gray wig and old reading glasses. I told Liu Hao that the money had to be returned to the person who killed me before I could rest. Otherwise, I would come back every day and make their lives worse than death. Naturally, Liu Hao repeated every word to my father. In my plan, only when my father returned the 600,000 yuan to Qin Yuheng would Qin Yuheng's mind become disturbed. As expected, my father and brother were guilty and afraid. They went to Qin Yuheng, threw the 600,000 back at him, and ran. Just as I predicted, Qin Yuheng came to Shuangxi village to ask around and find out what had happened. The story of Grandma's ghost haunting the family had already been deliberately spread throughout the village by me. Almost everyone knew. Qin Yuheng easily heard about it, and by such a coincidence also arranged by me, he ran into Madame Wu at the village entrance. Madame Wu looked at him and said the space between his brows had turned black. He was being followed by a wronged spirit. Not long after, Qin Yuheng also had an incident. After a business dinner, he got drunk. In the bathroom, he saw a white-haired figure in the mirror and nearly fell, almost breaking his leg. If everything went as I wanted, the ghost in his heart and the mysterious woman beside him would soon be dragged into the open. Sure enough, a few days later, Madame Wu told me that a mysterious woman had come to her asking for an exorcism ritual. It was Su Man King. I gave Madame Wu 5,000 yuan. During the ritual, Madame Wu arranged for Su Man King to burn paper offerings alone in the inner room. Madame Wu told her, "If you want Jiang Yulan to leave completely, you must resolve the knot in her heart. No one can hide secrets from ghosts. This step must be done by you alone." To keep Su Man King from refusing out of fear, Madame Wu added, "I will guard outside. I won't let her harm you." Of course, I had arranged this too. I had hidden a listening device under the table in the inner room. I wanted to hear what Su Man King would say to my grandmother. As it turned out, Su Man King really did know Grandma. I heard her call Grandma Auntie Jiang. "Auntie Jiang," she said softly. "Madame Wu just said no one can hide secrets from ghosts. Looks like you're not very good at being a ghost either. You died, and you still don't know who really harmed you." Her voice was light, even amused. "The person who harmed you was me all along." I sat in the next room and the blood in my body almost froze. Su Man King continued. "That day, Yu Heng stopped the car to buy water. By chance, I saw the photos in his camera. He had secretly taken pictures of me and him. I guess he wanted leverage over me. He still didn't trust me. He didn't believe I truly loved him. He didn't believe I would never fight him for the Qin family fortune. Those photos made me so uncomfortable. They made me want to die. Then I saw you. I recognized you at one glance. You were still smiling so happily, exactly like when you worked as a housekeeper at my family's home years ago." I froze. So Grandma had once worked for Su Man King's family. That meant Grandma recognized her. Su Man King laughed softly. "Sometimes I really found it strange. You were only a poor old countrywoman. What did you have to be happy about? It was so annoying. Maybe you were just meant to die. You just had to let me see you at that moment." Then a wonderful idea came to me. If Yu Heng discovered that the photos he had secretly taken were seen by someone else, what would he do? I guessed that he might kill you. And if he really killed you, I would record everything. That way he and I would be in the same boat forever. I heard that in ancient times when bandits joined a mountain stronghold, they had to submit a pledge of loyalty. Auntie Jiang, you were the pledge of loyalty Yu Heng gave me. With you, he could never betray me. I clenched my teeth so hard my jaw hurt. Tears kept falling. Suman King went on. So I deliberately let you pick up the camera. I deliberately left the screen unlocked. I deliberately let you see those photos. Then I deliberately called you Auntie Jiang in front of Yu Heng when you chased after us to return the camera. After that, Yu Heng was terrified. He asked me what we should do if you opened your mouth and told people about us. Actually, if he knew you, he would know you were never the kind of person who gossiped. But what a pity. No matter what I said, he didn't believe it. He was too afraid. I had no choice. I told him, if you're that scared, just run her over. Only the dead can keep secrets forever. At this point, Suman King laughed. Her laugh was slippery and cold like a venomous snake flicking its tongue. Auntie Jiang, you were a good person. Even after death, you should be a good ghost. Didn't you used to say your granddaughter was studying and needed money? I'll take the 600,000 your son returned and give it to her. You died and earned 600,000 for your granddaughter. What else are you unsatisfied with? Yu Heng is timid. Don't scare him anymore. If you want to scare someone, scare me. Her voice suddenly softened. I truly hate people who don't listen to me. But right now I can still speak nicely to you. Take this paper money and leave properly. After all, if Yu Heng could kill you when you were alive, then I can deal with you for him now that you're dead. If you still refuse to obey, be careful. I might make sure you never reincarnate. In the darkness, Su Manking's voice was as sweet as honey and as poisonous as arsenic. I took off the earphones. My face was soaked with tears. My grandmother had been killed by this poisonous snake. If I did not avenge her, I could not call myself human. Back in the nanny room under the surveillance camera, I copied the Heart Sutra for a long time before I could barely calm myself down. Qin Yu Heng and Suman King seemed intimate enough to kill someone together in order to hide their relationship. But that hidden intimacy was also the fatal crack between them. Qin Yu Heng had killed my grandmother for two reasons. First, he could not bear the risk of his relationship with his stepmother being exposed. He was already at odds with his father. Judging by the fact that he made Suman King take birth control pills, seducing his stepmother was probably only a temporary strategy to prevent her from giving Qin another heir. Once his relationship with Suman King was exposed, how could Qin tolerate a son who had dared to sleep with his wife? Second, the price of killing my grandmother was too small. She was only an old countrywoman. He ran her over on a village road, then called the police himself and actively paid compensation. As long as he spent 600,000 yuan, my father happily accepted the money, and the whole village praised Grandma for being lucky. 600,000 yuan. It bought a human life. It bought Suman King's loyalty. It bought Qin Yu Heng's position as the sole heir of the Qin family. For him, the deal was more than worth it. That was why, outside the crematorium, he had laughed so proudly. As for Suman King, that stupid and vicious woman was even more deserving of death than Qin Yu Heng. Everything she did was simply to gain control over Qin Yu Heng and make sure he could never escape her. That selfish, rotten pair had taken my grandmother's life for their own desires. Then they kept living without regret. They still ate well, dressed well, talked about love, and enjoyed life. On what basis? Just because they had money, just because they could easily throw out 600,000 yuan. What they did not know was that to many people, Jiang Yulan may have been worth only 600,000 yuan. But in this world, there was still one granddaughter who considered her priceless. They had stolen my priceless treasure. So I would send them to hell. Suman King wanted love. Then I would make her lose that ridiculous love forever. Qin Yuheng wanted money and inheritance. Then I would make sure he never got the Qin family. And after they lost what mattered most to them, I had prepared an even greater surprise. I hoped they would slowly enjoy the feast of destruction I had prepared. After observing for some time, I roughly guessed where Qin Yuheng and Suman King met in secret. According to the old nanny, the third floor had once been Qin Yuheng's territory. His bedroom, study, and even his model collection room were all there. But after Suman King married into the family, she took one look at Qin Yuheng's model room and decided she wanted to turn it into a tea room. Qin Zhen spoiled his young wife. He allowed her to take over his son's room and moved Qin Yuheng into the dim guest room across the hall. Because of that, Suman King and Qin Yuheng had once argued terribly in front of Qin Zhen. Of course, Suman King won in the end. I did not know whether she and Qin Yuheng had already been involved at that time and were deliberately acting in front of Qin Zhen, or whether their relationship began later. In any case, the only place on the third floor where Qin Zhen would absolutely never go was Qin Yuheng's former model room. That room was now Su Manqing's tea room on the surface, but part of Qin Yuheng's model display remained inside. He treasured it greatly and only allowed me to clean it once a month. More importantly, the carpet inside was extremely soft, and there were cushions and a thin blanket. Clearly, Qin Yuheng had put some effort into making Su Manqing comfortable. During my once-a-month cleaning opportunity, I swapped one of the models with a model that contained a listening device. Then I began my plan. While grocery shopping, I collected a few long chestnut brown hairs from Chen Wan's older sister. That color was very distinctive. That day, I asked Suman King for half a day off. At the exact moment Qin Yuheng entered the house, I walked past him and casually let one long hair stick to his shirt. Sure enough, that night through the earphones, I heard Qin Yuheng and Suman King arguing violently in the tea room. Suman King demanded to know which little vixen the hair belonged to. No matter how Qin Yuheng explained, she insisted he had another woman outside and demanded that he bring that woman to her. They argued until Qin Yuheng's young master temper finally exploded. "If you want to investigate, go investigate," he said. "I'm done serving you." He slammed the door and left. Suman King flew into a rage and smashed a pile of models. I was worried that in her madness, she would break the model with the listening device. Fortunately, maybe Grandma was protecting me from heaven. The device was not discovered. The next day when I returned to work, both Suman King and Qin Yuheng looked terrible. That morning, whether by coincidence or not, all three members of the Qin family came downstairs before 7 and sat at the breakfast table. Qin Zhen sat at the head of the table and said coldly to Qin Yuheng, "Put away that funeral face. If you're uncomfortable living at home, move out. If you stay under this roof, follow the rules of this house." He glanced at Suman King, and his voice grew heavier. "Remember this clearly. Man King is the mistress of this house. Even if she isn't much older than you, she is still your stepmother." The word stepmother fell like something dirty onto the table. Qin Yuheng's face immediately darkened. Suman King's expression was not pleasant either. I very much wanted to stay and continue watching this wonderful family drama, but I could not. Expressionless, I served breakfast, then quickly left the dining room. Before I walked far, I saw from the corner of my eye that Qin Yuheng had also stood up and left the table. The corner of my mouth lifted. Was that already too much for him? The things he could not bear were still waiting behind him. Just as I had guessed, the father-son bond between Qin Zhen and Qin Yuheng was extremely weak. If Suman King was slightly unhappy, Qin Zhen would knock Qin Yuheng down to vent anger for his wife. I would never believe that Suman King did not add fuel to the fire. But more importantly, Qin Yuheng would not believe it either. How could someone like Qin Yuheng not resent Suman King? I was truly looking forward to it. Su Man King did not disappoint me. That night, she seemed to be in a very good mood. When I carried dinner out of the kitchen, I even saw her dancing in the living room. An old love song played through the speakers. The way she immersed herself in it made me feel that maybe she really believed she and Qin Yuheng were true love. I found it ridiculous and painful. Trash like her was still alive enjoying fine food music and so-called love. But my grandmother, such a good person, would never again enjoy any of the beauty of this world. I gripped the knife in my hand and chopped down hard on the watermelon on the cutting board. Only by imagining that watermelon as Su Man King's head could I calm myself a little and stop myself from rushing into the living room to deal with that woman with my own hands. I warned myself not to be impulsive. Grandma was watching me from heaven. She would protect me and let me get what I wanted. That night, I heard a door slam hard. Qin Yuheng was home. I carried the sliced watermelon to the dining table, then obediently returned to my nanny room. 10 minutes later, in the tea room on the third floor, Qin Yuheng and Su Man King erupted into a violent argument. It turned out that Su Man King had gone to Qinsheng Pharmaceuticals that day. Among the many female employees in the marketing department Qin Yuheng managed, she had targeted a girl with long chestnut brown hair. Then, using her identity as the chairman's wife, she forced human resources to fire the girl. When HR asked for a reason, she said coldly, "There is no reason. I just want her to know that I am the real mistress here." Through HR's interpretation, those words became a story that the girl had tried to cling to Qin Yuheng and offended Su Man King. After this act of killing the chicken to scare the monkeys who in the company would dare openly stand with Qin Yuheng. It seemed like Su Man King had lost control because of jealousy, but in reality she had made Qin Yuheng's already unstable position in the company even more dangerous. Qin Yuheng was furious. "You're terrifying," he said. "Is this what you call loving me? You're controlling me, tying me down. You're like a snake wrapped around me so tightly I can't breathe. You're driving me insane." Su Man King's voice was sharp. "Now you think I'm forcing you? Why didn't you think of this when you seduced me? How have I not loved you? I've nearly ripped my heart out for you. What have you done that's worth trusting? That hair didn't just magically fall onto your shoulder, did it?" What followed was another round of crying and screaming just like the night before. Only this time, Qin Yuheng seemed to finally understand his position. He did not slam the door and leave. Instead, he repeatedly promised that the person he loved most was Su Man King. He swore that he and the innocent girl who had been fired had nothing between them. If he lied, he would die a miserable death. Finally, Qin Yuheng used his final weapon. "I even killed someone for you. Why do you still not understand how I feel? I know you don't feel secure. But do you think I do? Every night when I think of you sleeping in the same bed as that old man, my heart feels like it's being cut open. I'm already suffering. Can you stop making trouble?" Those words somehow soothed Su Man King. Her voice softened. "So you'll really love me forever, right?" Qin Yuheng answered. "Of course." After that came sounds I had no reason to continue hearing. I removed the earphones. I thought that Su Man King's heart was probably made of sand, so barren it could not nourish any living thing on its own. So she could only keep absorbing from the outside. My grandmother's life was like that. The job of that innocent girl was like that too. She relied on stealing precious things from others to decorate her own empty life. She was garbage from head to toe. Next, I continued my plan step by step. Qin Yuheng drove past a deserted road and encountered a pregnant woman clutching her stomach, crying for help. Like a kind person, he got out of the car, helped the pregnant woman inside, and drove her to the hospital. The pregnant woman was someone I had hired. Later, while Su Man King was trimming flowers in the garden, she received an envelope delivered by a courier. Inside the envelope were 3 photos. One showed Qin Yuheng helping the pregnant woman into his car. One showed his hand behind her back. One showed his car stopped outside the hospital entrance. From inside the nanny room, through a gap in the curtain, I saw Su King tremble all over. She called the security guard. She called the courier back and questioned him. She tormented them for more than an hour, but of course she found nothing. Naturally, she found nothing. Because the person who sent the envelope was not a real courier at all. I finished cooking lunch and called her in to eat as usual. She had no appetite. She only stirred the rice in her bowl with her chopsticks. Suddenly she asked me, "Other than going to the police station, how can someone find out who owns the phone number on a delivery package?" She did not even bother addressing me politely. How rude. I pretended not to know, shook my head and left the dining room. A moment later I came back and mentioned casually, "These days social media accounts are all registered with real names. Maybe you can use the phone number to search WeChat." She did not suspect a thing, and immediately put down her chopsticks to operate her phone. Stupid woman. Using the phone number, she found a WeChat account named Mi Chun Chun. When she tried to add it, she received a notification saying the account did not accept friend requests from strangers. And I was Mi Chun Chun. I had bought an old phone number and WeChat account online. Before this, I had set it so strangers could only see a few recent posts. I guessed Su King must have seen the 3 posts I had uploaded the previous day. One photo was of a pregnant belly, one was of Qin Yuheng's car logo, one was of Qin Yuheng's hand beside a bag of supplements. The caption read, "Daddy is so thoughtful. I hope our son will be as caring as you one day." That afternoon, the imported rose bushes Su King had tended for 2 months had all their heads cut off. That night at 8 o'clock, Qin Yuheng came home. As soon as he stepped through the door, Su King called him up to the tea room. Holding the photos, she confronted him. "You bastard. You won't let me have a child, but you got another woman pregnant outside. Do you think I'm an idiot?" Qin Yuheng was so angry he almost laughed. "Where did you get these photos? Did you send someone to follow me?" Su King denied it fiercely. "I didn't." "Explain first. Who is this woman and what is going on with her belly? What did you tell me before you said you wanted to take me away? You said you wanted to go somewhere no one knew us and have a child that belonged to both of us. Were all of those lies?" Qin Yuheng fell silent. I guessed he had been stunned by Su King's madness. Then Su King continued to curse him, calling him ungrateful and heartless. Qin Yuheng remained silent. Only after she finally had nothing left to say did he speak coldly. "That pregnant woman was someone I happened to meet on the road, believe it or don't. Since you already sent people to follow me, it means you don't trust me. No matter what I say, it's useless. I'm going back to my room." Su King screamed, "You're not allowed to leave. If you don't explain yourself, don't you dare walk away." Then I heard the sound of someone hitting something, followed by Su King's scream. "Qin Yuheng, you hit me." Perhaps Qin Yuheng had pushed her down. The play had reached its climax, but at that moment, Qin Zhen's headlights swept into the yard. He had returned early. The two of them could not continue the confrontation. The argument ended in resentment. Very good. I sat in my room and continued copying the Heart Sutra. My heart became calmer and calmer. For the next few days, Qin Yuheng either came home together with Qin Zhen at night or simply did not come home at all. Clearly, he was avoiding Su King. As for Su King, through stalking Mi Chun Chun's posts, she saw receipts for baby bottles and imported baby supplies. The caption I posted was, "Daddy says only the best is good enough for our baby no matter how much it costs." For the next half-month, Su King tried every day to wait for Qin Yuheng in the garage. Qin Yuheng kept avoiding her. After that, Su King stopped waiting for him. Instead, she deliberately chose times when Qin Yuheng was home to act intimate with Qin Zhen. She clung to Qin Zhen sweetly and did not avoid doing so in front of me. Of course, she avoided Qin Yuheng even less. Qin Yuheng pretended not to see and often came home late. Meanwhile, Mi Chun Chun continued sharing the happiness of becoming a mother. More than 2 months later, Qin went on a business trip. Qin Yuheng, as usual, would not return home until after 7 at night. That morning, I found medical waste in Su Manqing's trash. This time, for some reason, she had not destroyed it. That same day, she sat alone in the garden from morning until night without moving. It was past 10 at night when she returned to her room, her eyes red. After 11, Qin Yuheng came home late. Just as he entered, he bumped into me while I was carrying trash out. The trash bag fell to the floor. A pregnancy test with 2 red lines rolled to Qin Yuheng's feet. His eyes instantly turned bloodshot. "Whose trash is this?" I trembled as if terrified. It's Madam's." Qin Yuheng stormed into the house. Looking at his furious back, I murmured in my heart, "Only the final step remains." I returned to the nanny room, put on the earphones, and waited quietly. Based on the sounds that came through, Su Manqing had probably been dragged into the tea room by Qin Yuheng. I heard her panic and scream. "Are you crazy?" Qin Yuheng roared back. "You're the crazy one! Shameless thing! You throw yourself at that old man every day, and now you're pregnant with his bastard child." "Are you satisfied?" Su Manqing defended herself through sobs. "It was an accident. I've been taking birth control pills. I take them every day." "Yuheng, believe me. I really didn't want to get pregnant." Qin Yuheng did not believe her at all. After a loud slap, he laughed coldly. "An accident? You think I'll believe that nonsense? Why wasn't there an accident before? I just killed someone, and now suddenly there's an accident. Do you think because you have evidence that I killed someone, I won't dare tell my father about us? So you deliberately want to give birth to a child and fight for the family fortune?" Su Manqing cried bitterly. "I didn't. How can you think of me like that? I acted close to your father only because I wanted to make you jealous. I love you. How could I possibly want to give birth to your father's child?" "Why won't you believe me?" Qin Yuheng sneered. "Love. A woman who married an old man for money dares to talk about love. You make me sick. Stop talking. If you know what's good for you, get rid of that child. When the old man dies, I'll remember what we had and won't treat you badly. If you don't listen, then we can destroy each other. Guess how the old man will react when he sees those photos of you and me? Will he still want the bastard in your belly?" The room fell silent. After a while, Su Manqing suddenly laughed coldly. "Qin Yuheng, do you know something? When you ran over Auntie Jiang, I secretly recorded a video." The next sound was a metal shelf crashing down. Then came Qin Yuheng's roar. "You bitch!" Su Manqing seemed to be strangled by him. Her voice became broken and weak. "Go ahead. Show your father the photos. At worst, we destroy each other. By then, I'll only be kicked out of the Qin family. Without your father, I can still sleep with some other old man. But you'll only have prison waiting for you. Qin Yuheng, you're finished. I told you long ago. If you provoke me, don't betray me. I'll make you regret every word you said today for the rest of your life." After that, I heard Su Manqing's breathing grow weaker bit by bit. Finally, the world inside the earphones became completely silent. After a long time, I heard panicked footsteps. Qin Yuheng had fled. The world returned to silence, and the Heart Sutra I had been copying reached its final stroke. I lay down on the bed and slept the most peaceful sleep I had had in many days. At 4 in the morning, I got up as usual, left the nanny room, and went to the kitchen to cook. After cooking, I returned to my room. At 8 in the morning, Qin came home. He discovered Su Manqing's body in the tea room on the 3rd floor. He called the police. The police took me in for questioning and asked if I had heard any cries for help the night before. I shook my head. The owners required me to clean at 11 and return to the nanny room by midnight. After that, no matter what sounds came from outside, I was not allowed to go out. The nanny room is very soundproof. I didn't hear anything. The police called the agency and also questioned the previous nannies. They confirmed that everything I said was true. Then they let me go. Walking out of the police station, I breathed out slowly. Su King had not lied. She had indeed been taking birth control pills. It was just that long ago I had switched them with vitamins that looked exactly the same. Later, during the search for evidence, the police found not only intimate photos of Qin Yuheng and Su Manqing, but also the video Su Manqing had recorded of Qin Yuheng deliberately running over my grandmother. 24 hours later, Qin Yuheng was arrested while trying to hide. He was charged with the intentional murder of my grandmother and the murder of Su Manqing. What waited for him was the punishment of the law. At last, I had avenged Grandma. After such a huge scandal, Qin Zhen moved out of the villa almost immediately. Because someone had died there, no one dared buy it. Later, the villa was abandoned. Weeds grew across the yard. The once bright iron gate slowly rusted under the wind and rain. 1 month later, I left my hometown to attend graduate school. In truth, on the 49th day after Grandma's death, I had received my admission letter. Before I left, I went to her grave and kowtowed. I said, "Grandma, the bad people have paid for what they did. Now I have to keep studying. I will live well for you." The wind blew through the cemetery. The young grass beside her grave swayed gently. I looked at the small photo of her on the tombstone. In the photo, she was still smiling. That smile was just like the one she wore many years ago when she stood at the village entrance and waved goodbye as I left for college. Back then, she had said, "Xiaoran, just keep walking forward. Don't look back. Grandma will be behind you watching." I lowered my head, and tears fell onto the back of my hand. From now on, there would be no one waiting for me at the village entrance to come home. But I knew she was still watching me, from somewhere far away, somewhere high, somewhere bright. I wiped my tears, stood up, and pulled my suitcase out of Shuangxi village. The sun was beautiful on the country road that day. I passed the place where Grandma had fallen. The white chalk mark on the road had long been washed away by rain and wind. But I would never forget. I would never forget how she loved me. I would never forget how she was murdered. And I would never forget that there are people in this world who believe money can buy everything. But some debts cannot be repaid with money. Some debts cannot even be repaid with blood. Only the collapse of their entire lives can barely serve as an offering to the dead. I lifted my head and looked forward. At the end of the road was the bus leaving Qinghe County. I pulled my suitcase onto it. As the bus started moving, I looked out the window and seemed to see an old woman with gray hair standing beneath the old locust tree. She wore her faded floral jacket and smiled at me with narrowed eyes. She said nothing. She only waved gently. I waved back. Then the bus drove toward Yuntai City, toward the new life waiting for me. I knew that from that day forward I would live well. I would live for myself, and I would live for the part of her that never got the chance.
The official report may close the case, but not every file stays silent. Jiang Yulan's death was first written down as a traffic accident. One old woman, one dark village road, one rich young man behind the wheel, one settlement payment, 600,000 yuan. To some people, that was enough to close the matter, enough to silence a family, enough to erase a life. But Liu Xiaoran remembered what the record did not. She remembered the missed phone call. She remembered the savings book her grandmother had hidden for her. She remembered the old woman who patched her clothes, saved her wages, and told her to keep walking forward. She remembered that Jiang Yulan was not a number in an accident file. She was a person, a mother in every way that mattered, a woman who laughed through hardship, a grandmother whose love could not be priced. Qin Yuheng believed money could buy forgiveness. Su Manqing believed a dead witness could no longer speak. Liu Jianmin believed 600,000 yuan mattered more than his own mother's blood. But the dead do not always need to speak. Sometimes the living remember for them. Sometimes one unanswered call becomes a thread. One foolish child's witness becomes a crack. One secret lover's fear becomes a weapon. And one granddaughter's grief becomes the force that pulls an entire house of lies apart. In the end, Qin Yuheng lost the inheritance he killed to protect. Su Man King lost the love she tried to control. The Qin family villa became an abandoned shell swallowed by weeds and silence. And Liu Xiaoran left Shuangxi village with her suitcase carrying both pain and freedom into the sunlight. The law punished the killer. But the archive remembers something deeper. Some debts cannot be repaid with money. Some lives cannot be reduced to compensation. And some love remains long after the grave has been covered. If another file is found, if another voice comes forward, I will open the archive again. Until then, this is Shen Yu, the Raven archivist. And this file is now closed.